I love reading this book. You know, writing it was, I thought that was therapy. There's nothing like reading it. I'll tell you what, I'm talking about things that I thought I froze out years ago. I can't believe how much I've repressed. And I read it and it brings back memories, and some of them are really, really terrific, and some of them really get me. This is an interesting chapter. It's chapter 16. It's called So, Who's Our Pappy? And it's about a guy, one of my favorite characters in the world. It runs around a little bit, so you have to stick with me. The Deadliest Marine article, printed way back in the summer of '58 when I was a lifeguard, was always suppressed by me in Delaware. I was absolutely fearful that the bland intellectuals that I was surrounded with would never be able to appreciate an authentic physical prowess. I thought they'd think I was a thug. I also instinctively knew the conservatives would love it. Right-wingers I met around the nation loved a tough-ass, strong-willed ex-Marine, and I certainly knew I could deliver on that count. I showed the True Magazine article to Evan. Hey dude, tell everyone about this, and the easy ones twice. He did. All candidates for public office anywhere eventually have to express some type of attractive personality to their market, to their constituents. And they also have to express some type of a sales ability about themselves and why they should be elected. These skills have to be honed like a sharp knife, a needle, a rapier, to be exact. Anybody can make a sales pitch, but it takes a really clever candidate to sense the direction of a group consciousness and the way it wants to go when you have a room full of pals. Each person in the audience, every single one of them, has both a social role, which is, how to get along with everybody, and a personal role, how to get along with themselves and their family, and how do they fit in the social role. And that's their personal theory of how to express themselves. When two or more people are in the same room, a collective consciousness exists. It's the job of the candidate to determine that collective consciousness, their group common denominator, so to speak. I learned this technique early as a survival tool by bouncing around from family to family with no security whatsoever. I truly believe it was a gift that I got for having no parents, and it never dampened my individuality. I taught this technique of respect for self to my own children and all my students through hypnosis. We call it Zazen. You'll hear a lot about that later. I coached with it as I had perfected it on the drill field. I always knew an unseen creative energy exists, with or without our consent or personal code. Don't ask how, I just knew it. It causes our wishes to become true because it senses our intent through our practice of our own personal code. In other words, what we do is our intent. Some call it God, some call it biology, but it's what I call spirit. Simply stated, it's free will. Free will is a personal choice to maintain a positive attitude so we will always feel worthwhile and therefore experience a deep unconscious need to keep on growing. When you wish something positive, it's like setting off a beacon, a lighthouse in your head. It just keeps blinking and you just keep heading in that direction. All science will tell you that's true. What most folks fail to understand is when we are caught up in the negative opinions and attitudes with negative social and personal codes, our negative wishes, that beacon, okay, results exactly the same way. And therefore, because of the negative instructions, we actually stop growing and many get sick. In any social gathering, the political, commercial, and personal intertwining of others' personal codes pop right out at me. For some reason, I get an immediate sense of where everyone wants to be. When in groups, it is established by eye contact first, then body language, and then subtle head nods. Those who know how to decipher this code become what we call great educators, good trial lawyers, or politicians. Didn't know how to get along with people. Evan was an absolute mastermind at deciphering these codes as we traveled the national YR universe around the country together, concocting a magical mix that caused our surprise victory. He even hired a midget band to come to the convention floor in Chicago, billed as the Little People. It was hysterical. He had billboards posted along the main highway from the airport, welcoming delegates from the Little People. He had buttons made, "I'm a little honey," "I'm a little people," "Need a little," "I'm a little drunk." Delegates laughed hilariously. Lady delegates wore, "I'm a little mother." And the first time I saw them, I was so embarrassed, I had to suppress my total hilarity. The Californians love them, snickered Evan. Oh, I forgot about that old friend, Pappy, footnote. Anyway, so who's in this super secret Patrick Henry Society? With my right knee in a tight wrap, I kept reading the booklet with the footnote. An old but familiar name popped right out at me several times. A real, honest old friend by the name of Davis Elkins from Elkins, West Virginia, who lived across the street from the Elkins Bank on Davis Street, situated near Davis and Elkins College. Are you getting the picture? Both his mother and father were well-known Republican conservative politicians from West Virginia. He liked and admired Senator Homer Ferguson, who was the only sitting senator in the United States to vote against the Second World War after Roosevelt's inspiring congressional speech, "The day that will live in infamy." If you do not know this fact, don't claim to be far right. Kay, you will not believe who's an old friend. Tom, I'm busy, okay? Continuing anyway. Pappy's in the group that nominated Goldwater. Pappy nominated who? I showed Kay the footnote. She was not going to notice anything political, no matter how hard I tried. So I limped from the couch to the phone, and I tried to call my old friend Pappy. Pappy had walked the 14th Street beach with me in Ocean City, New Jersey, when Kay and I were working down there. He ate at Bob's on the boardwalk daily where Kay worked, and spent many, many evenings across the bay at Summers Point at Gregory's Bar, playing shuffleboard and drinking beer with us lifeguards. He was constantly explaining foreign policy to me and national domestic problems to me, and touted why we should be fighting in Vietnam. That was a switch. He carried a Time magazine constantly. He was always reading something. I didn't have time for Time, but I always loved Pappy. So I had plenty of time for conversation with him over rafts of drafts and lots of laughs about politics, the latest beach rescues, social scams we were planning, and general warrior bullshit. I dialed furiously, first to his home in Elkins, West Virginia. He's not here. He's in New Hampshire. I dialed New Hampshire. He's not here. Maybe he's back in Vietnam. Pappy worked in an orphanage in Vietnam when he wasn't doing the summers at Ocean City. I called all over the country. I left messages. Where's Davis? Where's Pappy? Tell Pappy Tommy Little is reaching out for him. Davis always called everyone Pappy, so that's why we all called him Pappy. Finally, days later, a call came through. What the fuck do you want, Marine? Pappy, I want to run for treasurer of the National Young Republicans. Will you help me? Stunned silence. Then Pappy laughed till he was sick with coughing. He lectured, Tommy, it's a closed club. It's an inside society. You just living on the East Coast is automatically a liability against you. They'll all say you're a Rockefeller Republican. You're too close to Scranton, and you're probably a communist anyway. They will never go for it. It's truly a stupid fucking idea. I put the question directly. Will you vote for me, Pappy? Hell yes. I said, well then that's two. Mine and yours. Let's go find the other fucking votes. Pappy roared with laughter. You're a piece of work, dude. I'm on the way. He was a first-class warrior who loved a good fight. He jumped in his car, which was pulling a trailer with his motorcycle attached on back, and he drove all night to Delaware. Then he stayed in our small dollhouse while Evan and the other crazies put the National Little People campaign together. Pappy met and loved Evan, our favorite screaming Northeast liberal. He loved him from the get-go. Hell, everyone loved Evan. Evan was always a party waiting to happen. The National YR Treasuries campaign was a go. In the beginning, Evan operated as warrior-in-chief until Pappy convinced the judge, Ed Failer, from Iowa, by the way, to come aboard as a national campaign manager and began calling all the campaign strategy shots. By the campaign, they'll talk about the Delaware Wrecking Crew for another 100 years, but never in public. It's called the old glass house trick. Nobody squeals for 100 years, otherwise I double dare you to throw the first rocks. At this particular point in my judo life, I was physically inactive. I sat watching 6:30 evening news on television without any future Olympic perspective or goals, thinking, my life is purely politics now. No more Olympic fantasies. I was a state legislature, the youngest serving in the Delaware House. I was also chairman of First National Retirement Systems. I was no longer teaching kids, but also was no longer working for somebody else. I had started my own business. However, part-time, I was teaching politics, psychology, and economics at a brand new statewide college called Delaware Technical and Community College, which I had the privilege of helping to organize. I was coaching swimming at a brand new Brandywine YMCA team. That was our first dual meet, was guess who? My old Sunbury YMCA. And the pains in the ass were the Sunbury coaches. Favors continued to result. Boy, was I psyched for that meet, and we kicked the hell out of them. And finally, a last footnote. Will, my buddy, became well known as a criminal trial lawyer. He was a partner in a big law firm. He was elected the senior party Republican county chairman, largest county in our state. Larry quit elected office and was appointed immediately by Governor Russ Peterson, and he became the longest serving public defender in the history of the state of Delaware. Mike was a campaign consultant who managed Republican campaigns for Congress up and down the East Coast, and eventually served as Mike Castle's Secretary of State. That, of course, was right after Mike Castle served as Pete DuPont's lieutenant governor. Pete served in Congress for 2 terms, and then as governor for 8 years. This is an example of how we were all growing up and parting ways as allies and friends. Unlike the others, I took my newfound conservatism very seriously, which meant taking on the United States Census Bureau single-handedly. I had promised everyone during the National YR campaign in all the caucus rooms, when it was my turn to make an address, that I would not fill in my census form. I filled in the name, address, and left all the other questions blank, stating, it's none of your business, on each of the other 178 questions, and I claimed it was invasion of my personal privacy to have to have to officially state my nationality or religion or go to jail. Evan eventually ran off to California with his girlfriend Kit. They got married, and he went on for his PhD and became an investment banker, and then a university president. That is after he served both of them served actually in the administration of President Jimmy Carter as their top ambassadors. Kit worked for Mrs. Carter, and Evan worked for the ambassador. Dickie became the Pan-American champion. Johnny, his younger brother, became the collegiate American champion. Joey, another younger brother, became a United States Marine Corps infantry lieutenant and went off to a place called Vietnam. Everyone I knew began changing uniforms and changing sides. However, Kay was happy, Ann was happy, Patrick was happy, Kelly was too young to know anything but happy. What could be better? Nothing could be worse. Finally, I had gotten my goal.